January 23. 1401, Tamerlane introduced his troops into the city of Damascus, in violation of a truce, and after levying an enormous contribution in gold, massacred the inhabitants, and reduced the city to ashes, in revenge of the murder of the grandson of Mahomet, 7 centuries before, by the Syrians. 1516. Ferdinand V of Spain died. He inherited the crowns of Aragon and Sicily, and united to them the kingdom of Castile by marriage. In 1492 he added to these the kingdom of Granada, the last possession of the Moors, by conquest. At the same time Columbus was discovering for him the New World. By force and treachery, he acquired the kingdom of Naples, and by similar means Navarre was also added to his dominions. Thus the whole of Spain was united under him, so that he may be considered as the restorer if not the founder of the Spanish monarchy. He was the most powerful monarch of his time, but his conduct was characterized by a total want of faith, and a recklessness of principle of which he made no scruple of boasting. He was the founder of that fearful tribunal, the Inquisition. 1570. Earl Murray, Regent of Scotland, shot by Hamilton of Bothwell. The latter, after the Battle of Langside Hill, had been condemned to death as a rebel, and pardoned. A part of his estate, however, was bestowed upon one of the regent's favorites, who seized Hamilton's house and turned his wife out into the fields, naked in a cold night, by which she became deranged. This injury induced him to seek revenge on the regent, after which he escaped to France. 1722. Henri de Bouillon-Villiers, Count of Saint-Cyr in Normandy, died. Having finished his studies, he entered the army, which however, he soon left to devote his attention to literature. A marked antipathy to revelation pervades his writings, and exhibits itself in singular contrast with a superstitious reverence for judicial astrology, and the mystic sciences, which he cultivated with much diligence. 1733. O.S. Birthday of Benjamin Lincoln, a Revolutionary general. At Hingham, Massachusetts, great reliance was placed in his abilities by Washington, and many important commissions entrusted to him. In 1781 he was appointed Secretary of War, which office he held 3 years, and then retired to his farm. He died 1810. 1761. Action between the British frigate Minerva, 22 guns, Captain Hood, and French ship Warwick, 34 guns, m. Capture of the latter. French loss 14 killed, 32 wounded. British loss 14 killed, 33 wounded, 3 of whom died. 1765. The British under Captain Byron colonized the Falkland Islands. 1766. William Castile, an eminent English type founder, died. He was induced to attempt letter cutting by a friend, and such was the perfection to which he carried the art, that the beauty of his type exceeded all others of the day, and was sought for from other countries on the continent. He was employed to cut characters for several languages of Asia. 1772. Mrs. Plum died near Lichfield, England, aged 138. She had lived 103 years in one house. 1775. The Pennsylvania Convention declared their determination, in case the arbitrary laws of England were attempted to be executed by force, to repel the same by the most determined resistance. 1780. The British ship Culloden of 74 guns lost off Long Island. 1789. Frances Brooke died, an English lady, remarkable for her literary accomplishments. Her works consist of novels, periodicals, tragedies, musical dramas, and translations. 1789. John Cleland died, author of the notoriously immoral romance, Fanny Hill. 1790. The mutineers of the ship Bounty, having arrived at Pitcairn's Island, and landed all their effects, set fire to the vessel and destroyed every vestige that could lead to the discovery of their retreat. The island was then divided into 9 equal portions between them, and the natives were reduced to the condition of slaves. See October 3. 1795. John Sullivan, a distinguished general in the Revolutionary Army, died. He was of Irish descent, and before the Revolution practiced law in New Hampshire. He was among the first to take an active part in the contest, resigned his seat in the first Congress to enter the army, was conspicuous at several engagements, and terminated his military career in laying waste the country of the Six Nations, in order to put a stop to their depredations. After the peace he filled several important state offices. 1795. The French took possession of The Hague and Helvoetsluis, made 800 Englishmen prisoners, and liberated 600 Frenchmen. 1799. The French under Championnet entered Naples. 1800. A convention signed between Jean Kleber and the Grand Vizier for the evacuation of Egypt by the French troops. 1800. Edward Rutledge, one of the signers of the Declaration of Independence, died. He was a member of the First Congress and acted a conspicuous part during the war. While the British beleaguered Charleston, his native city, he commanded a company of troops, and was taken prisoner. On the restoration of peace he returned to the practice of law, and a short time previous to his death was elected governor of the state of South Carolina. 1802. Humboldt and his companions ascended Chimborazo to the height of 18,576 feet above the surface of the sea, and they became almost torpid with cold. A narrow deep valley prevented them from reaching the summit, which was 1,344 feet higher. 1806. William Pitt, second son of the Earl of Chatham, died. He was born 1759, and at the age of 23 became Chancellor of the Exchequer and the next year Prime Minister. It was during the early part of his career that the American War was concluded. Notwithstanding the emoluments of his offices were great, so far from acquiring wealth, he died involved. Parliament decreed him a public funeral, and £40,000 to pay his debts. 1813. George Clymer, one of the signers of the Declaration of Independence, died. By the death of his parents he was left an orphan at the age of 7 years. But he was taken care of by his uncle, who left him a large fortune, with which to continue the business of a merchant in Philadelphia. His services to the country, during the Revolution, in raising supplies and devising ways and means to continue the struggle, were of incalculable importance. 1813. Horrible massacre of the United States prisoners taken by the British and Indians at the Battle of Frenchtown the day before. The houses in which the helpless, wounded lay were set on fire, and those who were too feeble to continue the march were shot or tomahawked on the road. It is morally certain that the British generals, Procter and Eliot, were culpable for this wanton sacrifice of human life to satiate the revenge of the savages. 1813. Robert Jameson died in South Carolina, aged 104. His eyesight, which had failed him some years previous to his decease, returned again just before his death, in all its strength. 1815. Thanksgiving Day in New Orleans, and a solemn Te Deum on account of Jackson's victory. 1820. Edward, Duke of Kent, died. He was the fourth son of George III. In 1802 he was appointed governor of Gibraltar, but his rigid discipline produced a mutiny, and he was recalled. The present Queen of England is his daughter. 1824. Stephen Cover, an Armenian writer of distinction, died, aged 84. 1833. Banastre Tarleton died, aged 78. He commanded the British cavalry in the Carolinas, in the Revolution. 1841. Sarah Ann Davis sentenced at Philadelphia for murder. The first capital conviction of a female in Philadelphia. 1844. William Gaston died at Raleigh, the capital of his native state. The prudence and energy of his mother made a disposition, naturally volatile and irritable, become a pattern of patience and perseverance. His speeches when a member of Congress were highly finished. 1853. Junius Smith died, aged 74, having devoted a considerable portion of his life to the establishment of transatlantic steam navigation, and the naturalization of the tea plant in the United States. 1854. Alexander Topodisco died at Georgetown. He was 17 years Russian minister at Washington, and was very popular with the American people. 1855. There was an earthquake in a part of New Zealand, by which the surface of the earth was raised between 3 and 4 feet, and the shellfish attached to the rocks died.